everyone, everyone here. How are you feeling today? Today I'm coming at you with a deck profile, which we'll get into it a little bit after those messages. So if you guys don't want to hear the messages and you're not subscribed to the channel, which I actually want you guys, if you can and you have the time and you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel and like this video. But if you are not interested in that and you're not 1% sure, I'm going to actually do something really nice for you guys, and that is leave in the description down below the time exactly what the deck profile is starting. So if you guys are new to the channel or you don't want to hear those messages and you don't have the time as well and you just want to see the deck profile, I will leave in the description down below immediately the place that you can just skip into and just have the deck profile itself. So before we begin to free messages, I would say the first one of them is pretty much, well, we reach 300 subscribers and we reach our first anniversary of the channel, which is really cool, and I didn't have a time for it because, like I told you guys, I've been off for a week, and we reached that only in the 3rd of April, and like I said, I wasn't here so much because I was with my family and friends and I didn't have the time, as well as you guys probably think it was a week. But for me, because I'm saving videos on my archive, it's actually been like 2 to 3 weeks. And yeah, it's pretty much, I didn't make enough videos, I didn't have the time, so because of that, we have this week absent, but I'm actually really happy because it gave me time to kind of like organize my stuff and just don't force on new videos and all that stuff, as well as just, well, because we reached 300, I felt to myself, I want to do something really interesting, and the first one of them is a kind of like a competition with you guys, you against me, kind of, which is I'm going to try to duel with you guys with YGO Pro and stuff. We'll see about that. But also, one thing I would say is that if you guys will make me reach 1,000 subscribers at the end of this year, or I would say at the 8th of January next year, I would actually reveal my face, and maybe even the rest of the gang will reveal its face, but probably going to be only me. So, yeah, we'll see about that. I'm actually not sure it's only going to be me, but it's going to be 100% me, because, well, I want to say thank you if I will reach 1,000 subscribers so easily. So it's kind of like a competition because we've already been like growing really fastly, and I felt to myself like it would be really cool if you guys will help me reach that kind of thing. And if you will do that, I will also tell you a really important story, and we'll start to do a lot of more things because it's just been like a really fun for me. But I just wanted to, like, you know, reach 1,000 subscribers because only then it's going to start the funding things for me from the channel money itself. It's a really complicated thing with YouTube, and unfortunately I want to do videos, but I don't have the time or I'm not gaining from it way too much to, like, you know, buy new products because I'm a little bit on a tight money kind of right now because I don't want to like waste it on everything, and because of that, like, of course, we need to reach 1,000 subscribers, as well as maybe in the future I'll also open a Patreon, but we'll see about that. I'm probably going to do it only when I'm reaching 500, so we'll see about that as well. And also, we actually want to do other things as well as a channel. So we're going to have me and the guys in Team NDL. We're going to have kind of like a meeting next week, I would say. I'm probably going to ask Squishy Prime if he can make this week a video. If he can't, well, a shame, I will upload a video of my own, but I will actually be with them in a meeting, and we will decide what kind of things we're going to add to the channel. We have a lot of cool ideas. One of my ideas is pretty much do kind of like an archetype reviews of what the archetypes has, what the archetype need to have, and what kind of support they need to give us in the future as well. So that's could be really cool, and I think that will be really fun. And also, we can do tournaments between ourselves. And one thing I actually thought to myself that I want to do is actually, you know, the YouTuber Grand Championship of like Simo and every single guys like that. I actually want to do that for like, I know it's maybe stealing and asking for permission or whatever, but I want to do it for like little YouTubers because I felt like the only big YouTuber getting recognition, and it's not only because I'm a little YouTuber, but because of the idea of like I want to make little channels more bigger and make the community bigger, and like good YouTuber channels need to be recognized. There are a lot of good YouTuber channels like V, which is a guy that I'm following, which if he's watching right now and he's subscribed to me, hello, my mentor, I would call you even though you're younger than me, because he helped me a lot on the things that I'm actually doing in the channel and gave me a lot of suggestions. So he's a really good channel. I also don't have the top of my head, but I actually found really cool little channels like Broken Eyes. It's a cool channel. It counted as a little channel in my eyes, and there are also other channels. So I felt to myself like doing something like that could be really, really cool as well. And also, I actually am going to do other stuff in the future, but we need to work on that as well. So without further ado, let's get started with this deck profile, because it's been like 6 minutes in and I think it's about time. So the decks I brought to you today with, of course, I'm using the deck box, of course. I'm actually purchased one, even though I don't really like deck boxes so much, because I most of the time like to take more than one deck with me at a time, which is one or two, of course. I like to take like 4 or 5. And I'm already taking a big bag, so I found to myself like I'm really okay with just taking it in megatens, but it's actually really useful to have at least one deck box for some kind of situations. And I really like this deck box and playmat because it's really cool, and I love Kaiba a lot. And this is pretty much the counter fairies, the new updated version. So if you guys want to have any kind of suggestion to help the deck, I will really appreciate it. But do know that I'm missing cards like Solemn Judgment, because I didn't have it to begin with, and it's now unbanned, so I need to find a way to get it. I'm probably going to order things with that, like with Mark Z, in the near future, so we'll see about that. And this is a really cool deck. It's pretty much the counter, not really a counter, but like the opposite of the Dark Structure deck that we're going to have really soon, like less than 2 weeks. I'm not going to say that it's actually more consistent than it, because it does have consistency issues, but it does have a little bit better time when what it does. So it's a little bit of a weird thing that I don't know how to explain to you guys, but without further ado, let's get started. And this is pretty much the Tide of the Brethren version, because I don't really have more than one card demise, so I felt to myself like I want to give you the Ties version, and it's a really good Tide of the Brethren version in my opinion, at least working for me. So first off, you want to run one copy of Scared Arch Aaron Knight Pershaf, or whatever his name is, the boss monster. You want to run this card at 1 because, well, he's pretty much a brick, and it's not that good of a card to begin with, like, not because it's a bad boss monster, but like, its summoning conditions a little bit of annoying, and it's also like I said, it's a brick, it's sitting in your hand doing absolutely nothing, so I felt to myself like, 1, it's just enough. It's just really enough. You don't really run a lot of monsters. The only way that you can summon it is pretty much if you don't have a lot of monsters in your graveyard or your hand, it's pretty much this card. So yeah, I found myself like running 2 of this card is actually a brick, and 1 is just working perfectly fine. Next up, I'm running the 3 of the 2 backbones of the deck, which is 3 Guiding Ariadne and 3 copies of Bountiful Artemis. You guys know what they're does. They're just the best counter fairies in my opinion. You get a draw for a counter trap, and you get the ability to not pay things for counter trap, and also if it gets destroyed, you get to search a counter trap, which is really cool. So 3 of each in my opinion is really important, and yeah, you want to maximize those cards because they're really good. Next up, you also want to run 2 copies of Minerva Scholar of the Sky, as well as Power Angel Valkyria. Now, if you run the Ties, not the Ties, but the card demise version, I would suggest to cut this card by 2 and just not play it and play more counter traps or whatever, because it's really not useful in that regard. But in this version, because it's card demise, I also want, not card demise, Tide of Brethren, I'm just really getting confused by the 2, because I also want to have a target to my ties, as well just in general. If I'm getting stuck, I want to have something to just, I negate stuff and get my power, not my power, but like my comp piece for next turn. So I thought to myself like Power Angel Valkyria at 2 is really okay, at 3 is way too much bricky, like was in the last update, so I decided to cut it down to 2. And of course, Minerva Scholar of the Sky is of course a counter trap gainer attack. It's going to become really big, and also if you have Sanctuary in the Sky, it can recycle counter traps. It's instead of except the ones that were activated. I don't know why I have like a big tongue twister today, but yeah, I have a big tongue twister today. Anyway, the last two cards are Mental, the Sage of the Sky. I actually felt to run this card at 2 because it does give you 1,000 life points every single time you activate a counter trap, so it's making like Solemn Strike a 500 point payment instead of 1500. But I felt to myself, like, because of its secondary effect, which is can only activate it when you have Sanctuary in the Sky, I felt to myself like it's really a cool card, but I don't really need more than one. I might actually bump it up to 2 in the future, but for now I actually thinking like 1 is really enough for me. And then the last monster is Honest, which most of the time I actually search with Power Angel Valkyria when I'm negating stuff to get a hand trap and protect myself from monsters, I would say, and battle. So that pretty much does it for the monsters. 13 monsters. Now we'll move on to the spells. So first off, we're running 3 copies of the Sanctum of Pershaf, which is a really cool card, giving you the ability to protect your counter traps and every set card you have, as well as just giving you the ability to recycle. I wouldn't say recycle, but like put 3 of your counter traps and 3 of your you could say counter fairies themselves on the top of your deck in any order, and so it's really cool and can be really useful with Bountiful Artemis because you can keep drawing into them. And also, it's not the best thing in the world, but it's really cool. And also it counts as Sanctuary in the Sky, so that's really also a thing. And it's also giving your monsters a boost, so that's really nice. But the problem with this card I have is that it's a continuous spell. If it was a field spell, I will be so much happier, because that means that I don't have to run the older Sanctuary in the Sky, but I guess Konami wants you to run the older one for some reason. And because of that, I'm also running it at 1, because I need to have it in my opening hand, and not in my opening hand, I would say, because I can draw into it, but I want to see one of those 4 cards, because, well, this one is the superior version, but I want to see one of Sanctuary in the Sky to make 100% sure that my Counter Fairies monsters will be working the best they could. So that pretty much does it for that, and that's also a thing that show you guys that how much this deck is really good, but doesn't have a lot of consistency, because it doesn't have the ability to save these cards, but it does have Tides of the Brethren, which is a really cool card. It's giving you the ability, you know what it does, to summon 2 monsters with different name, but with the same type, attribute, and level of the monster that you targeted by paying it 2,000, and you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn and not enter your battle phase. But it really doesn't matter because you're going first, and it's really cool because it's a way for you. So I would say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 target, I would say. Although particularly you would prefer to have only 4 because you don't want to target your Honest or your Bountiful, not Bountiful Artemis, but your Guiding Ariadne. But even Honest is not the biggest problem because you can just return it to your hand as a hand trap. But just in general, you have like a 6 targets in this deck, which is 12 like monsters overall. I'm talking about like the card names. So that's really cool, and you have that to work for you, and just make most advantage of this card because it's really good. Next up, for your draw power, you want to run 2 copies of Pot of Desires, because what this deck have is, well, first off, lack for consistency, like I said, but it's also really important to only have the cards in your hand and field rather than your deck, and you mostly run most of your cards at 3, so Pot of Desires doesn't really hurt this deck so much. It could be super risky because it's a double-edged sword, but, you know, it's Pot of Desires, it does what it does. And also I'm running 1 copy of Card of Demise, 1 copy of Pot of Duality, and 1 copy of Upstart Goblin. Now, I know that those 2 cards conflict with Ties of the Brethren, but sometimes, A, I don't see Ties of the Brethren, and B, sometimes I preferring those and just, like, set my Ties of the Brethren for next turn, so it could have, like, at least ton of consistency and just have, like, a lot of cards to use, because sometimes I open up, like, with a brick hand and just open up with, like, Scared Arnite Pershaf and, like, really just impossible to use a hand. So I went to myself, sometimes sacrificing Tide of the Brethren, because it's like it's an important card, but like sometimes you need to sacrifice it. I would say like those 2 cards are really important, and sometimes you even banish all your free copies with Pot of Desire. So I want to have some other things to continue to go into my combo pieces, and because of that, I'm running those overall 5 draw cards. And that pretty much does it for the spells. Now we'll move on to the traps. So for the traps, you want to run 3 copies of Rebirth of Pershaf, because I'm running so much counter traps in this deck, like so many, and because of that I don't really feel bad of running like free of this card, because sometimes I actually just open up with like in my opening hand like 5 counter traps, and just I'm sending 4 of them and one of those included. And this one can also shuffle cards and give you a per shaft from your deck or extra deck, which most of the time you want to go to your extra deck one, or even go to your deck one to get it off your deck. It doesn't really matter the situation depending on what you want, but I don't have the extra deck one, so I just only going to get the main deck one. So that's really cool as well, I guess. But if you don't have the extra deck one, I might actually suggest to cut it down to 2, but it's still a really good card. Next up, I'm running 3 copies of Drastic Drop Off because I like this card a lot. Not because only it can actually snipe a card out of your opponent's hand, kind of doing their draw phase, but a lot of decks today, like all of them I would say, search and add cards to their hand. So you can even like get from their hand like a cool spell that they searched, a good monsters that they searched. Sometimes like some decks don't have the capabilities of like reviving a monster. Like Pendulum decks do have the capability to revive a monster, but if you're taking their card out of their hand, you sometimes actually slow them down. So it's really cool things that you can just use that in order to just like take the important card of your opponent's hand and just make 100% sure that he will not be able to do his stuff, or just make his life a living hell of doing his own stuff. Because like I said, getting cards into your hand is really cool, but I can get them into your graveyard, and if you don't have a way to revive them, I'm pretty much going to make your life a living hell. Then also 2 copies of Divine Punishment. I really like Divine Punishment, but I don't have the I don't run maximize on the Sanctuary in the Sky, and I don't have like really much Sanctuary in the Sky because I felt like it's kind of a brick and it's not the card demise version. So I felt to myself Divine Punishment at 2 is enough for me. 2 copies of Ultimate Providence because I love this card a lot. It's pretty much Divine Punishment, but only with a cost. And if I have Guiding Ariadne, I don't have to pay the cost. So I like this card a lot. 1 copy of Negate Attack because sometimes battle phase is really, really important. Sometimes, and importantly, against evenly matched. So that's really, really cool. And actually not really against evenly matched because your opponent needs to declare an attack. But you know what I mean. Just when your opponent declares an attack and you kind of like wide open, you can use this card to pretty much I would say to just make 100% sure that you are not going to die. So I felt like 1 Negate Attack is enough and you don't need more than that. And then 3 copies of Solemn Strike and 1 copy of Solemn Warning. I don't have Solemn Judgment, but if I would have Solemn Judgment, I might actually like switch one of the strikes or one of the Drastic Drop Off or one of the counter traps. We'll see about that when we'll get it, but for now I don't have it. So yeah, it's pretty much the only lineup I can run. And that pretty much does it for the main deck monsters and spells and traps. Now I'll move on to the side deck. So the side deck is pretty much disrupt my opponent if I'm going second and just don't let them to play with a card that they want. So first of all, 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. 3 copies of Effect Veiler because I don't have Ash, but it's also a pretty good card. 3 copies of Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries because you can have some targets in the extra deck and just like disrupt your opponent in that regard as well. 3 copies of Hanewata, I believe I'm pronouncing the name correctly, because I want to deal with Trick Stars and I don't want to get damaged a lot because this deck have a problem of like taking effect damage. And then 3 copies of the Artifact Lancia because, well, I can search this card and I want to deal with Invoked and Mech Knights and all those shenanigans that banish cards. And that pretty much does it for the side deck. Now we'll move on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, first of all, and the most important card of all of them, at least for me, I'm running 1 copy of Utopia, 1 copy of Utopia Array because I don't have Prime, and 1 copy of Utopia the Lightning because, well, full package of Utopia is amazing and I have the space too, so why not? And I also don't have the Parshaft Knight himself, like I told you guys, so I actually want to make the most as possible with the card that I do have. 1 copy of Dark Rebellion because sometimes Utopia the Lightning is not enough because sometimes my opponent can just strike this guy or whatever and I need another way to deal with a high attack monster or just get over stuff. 1 copy of Kyra Gorgon because sometimes it's actually really nice to redirect stuff and I really like this card a lot. 1 copy of Baguska because negate all monster effect except link monsters, which is really amazing. one copy of Honor Arc and one copy of Castell, pretty much doing the same thing, only Honor Arc for monsters and attaching itself, the monster to itself, so that's really, really nice. And then one copy of Abyss Dweller, which can be whatever you want, but I actually deal a lot with dinosaurs, especially with Squishy Prime, so I felt to myself like, I want something to deal with his shenanigans, so that's really, really cool. And then one copy of Akashic Magician, which is the only Link monster I go into, because it just can get rid of a monster if it's in the same column of it, and it's a really, really good Link monster. I just like it a lot, and you can even just use as a Ghost Reaper target, which I also have 5 targets for that as well, which is one copy of Mikaba, one copy of Seraphinite, one copy of Minerva, one copy of Totally Awesome, and one copy of Borolo Dragon. Now it can be any targets that you wish. You can even just make the entire extra deck except like those 3 and this and maybe like Dark Rebellion and this, like few of the cards to be like your power toolbox, and you can make the entire extra deck like I would call it like a Cherry's target. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that. And hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I hope you guys will stay tuned for the other things that we have in store for you, because like we have a lot to work on and talk about. So like I said, hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Remember, creativity is the key in this game most of the time, and I actually noticed that a lot. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day, guys. Happy anniversary for all of you, and stay safe.